get started. So we have these two books. Which one is first? Where do I start?
This book, the Combined Teaching Guide, is your source for the actual lessons that you're going to teach. This will give you the activities to do with your child when you're teaching a new concept, and it will explain all the concepts that you need from the very beginning up to where they start algebra. It also has at the very beginning a list of all the concepts that you'll be teaching your child so that you can keep track of where you are, what you've taught, and what you still need to teach.
Okay.
This book, the Curriculum Resources, is sort of the extras. This has your math adventures where you put your math in real life. It's got a math dictionary in it, so if there's a term you're not sure about, you can check on the dictionary. There's a section of family vocabulary words. There's a section on graphing and charting. So these are kind of the extra things. Oh, and also your section on math facts is in here.
Those are important.
They are. So your math fact information is in this book. So it's a good idea to take a look through this book. Also at the beginning, there's a section that tells how Math on the Level works and how you get started if you need more than what you're going to hear now.
Well, this is exciting. So after reading through how it works, how do I place my kids? How does that work?
Where do you start?
Where do I start?
Okay. The thing about Math on the Level is that you want to start where your kids are. So the first thing you have to decide is, where are they? Now, if you've got little ones, if you have some that haven't started at all yet, for the really little ones, you're going to want to start with the hands-on activities. You don't need to start with pencil paper at first. Those activities, either using math adventures or the first few concepts in every section, will be things that are very hands-on. So things like sequencing numbers, getting the numbers to 1,000, understanding your math symbols. A lot of those things will be more hands-on activities and not so much your pencil paper. So for the little ones, you just kind of jump in. Pick your area and jump in. Keep track of what you've taught them and build from there. The challenge is when you have a child who has already learned some math. And at that point, we'll jump into the computer and show you on the computer how you start placing your child. The first thing you're going to do is go to mathonthelevel.com and log into your account. Then go to the bar of tabs on the top. Click on the 5-A-Day Online tab. That will take you to the dashboard, which is your home page for the 5-A-Day Online. If you have any questions about how to use 5-A-Day Online, go to the Tutorials and Support tab. And there are detailed instructions on using the 5-A-Day Quick Print and the 5-A-Day Worksheet Quick Print, and also on the settings. Next, go to the 5-A-Day Scheduler and download the Slim 5-A-Day Scheduler. This is what you will use until your trial period is over. After 60 days, or as soon as you know you're going to keep the curriculum, let us know and we can give you access to the full scheduling spreadsheet, which has a lot more bells and whistles and lets you put more than one child at a time on.
So what do all of these numbers mean on the concept chart?
All right, the first number is the concept number. The second, then you have the name of the concept. Up here it tells you which teaching guide we're dealing with. This is operations. This is the page number where the concepts are taught. That gives the directions for teaching the concepts. The next column is the 5-A-Day column. That was in the classic edition when we first wrote it. Those were the pages where you found your practice problems for these concepts. If you're using the second edition and you're using the online 5-A-Days, you really don't need to pay any attention to this column or these pages unless after your year's subscription is over you decide you want to do it by hand. Then you'll download the PDFs and these numbers will refer to the PDF numbers. But what this does tell us is whether or not there are 5-a-day problems for the concept. For example, things like beginning counting, that's actually now in foundations. That doesn't have a 5-a-day because you teach counting,
Right.
not with, you don't practice it with a 5-a-day, you practice it by counting. Other things like multiplication with manipulatives, you don't do that with a 5-a-day, you do that with manipulatives.
Okay.
So some of the concepts don't have 5-a-day problems on them. They're not the kind that you review with pencil paper. This column, replace and drop. The drop concepts are ones that at some point your child probably knows how to do it. Like sequencing numbers, at some point your child doesn't really need to practice putting numbers in order. So you can just drop that one. Other things, replace, like here number 9, multiple digit addition note without regrouping is replaced by 16, which is addition with regrouping, because once they're regrouping, they don't need to practice it without a regrouping. Adding 3 or more numbers is replaced by concept 71, which is perimeter over in geometry and measurements, because in order to do the perimeter of any figure, you have to add at least 3 numbers.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. So we are going to be paying attention to the replace and drop as we do the placing. Okay, so now you're going to start by putting her name at the top,
Okay.
and you're going to check every row that has a number in the 5-a-day column and see if she can do it. If she can, mark it in the corner.
Okay.
So if you know it's been taught, then go ahead and mark it in the corner.
Now, I'm not sure if she knows Roman numerals.
Okay, then just leave it blank. Don't do anything with it, and you can teach it later. This is only things that you know she can do. Now that you've marked all the concepts you think she has learned, we'll use the first 5-a-days to confirm that she remembers how to do them. So go back to the online 5-a-day generator on the Math on the Level website. Click the tab that says 5-a-day quick print. That will take you to where you're going to input the numbers. Now normally you will use import from spreadsheet once you start reviewing, but right now we're just going to put the numbers that she needs to review. And you marked 5, 7, 8, 9 as concepts that she needed to practice. And I'm going to suggest that instead of 10, you check concept 16 with this group and check concept 10 with the next group tomorrow. Because since 16 replaces concept 9, if you check them both at the same time, you can find out which one you want to have her review. After you've entered the 5 concepts that you want to check, just hit enter and it will generate a worksheet for you. On the worksheet you have the option of making the problem more or less difficult. You can also regenerate the problem, so if one of the problems isn't what you want to do, you can regenerate it until you get a problem that you like. You can also leave the problem blank and write it in yourself. After the worksheet is the way you want it, you can either download the file or just view it in your browser. Open it, and then from your browser you can either print the worksheet by itself or you can print the worksheet and a separate page that includes the answers. So if you want to just look at the answers on your computer instead of printing it out, you can do that as well. The last thing that we have to set up is the automated scheduling spreadsheet. So go to the spreadsheet that you downloaded, open it up. There's a sample tab that gives you a lot of information on what to do in the spreadsheet, but let's just go to the setup and I'll walk you through what needs to happen here. First, make sure that the first day of your school week is what you want. You can use the drop-down menu to change it to the day you want to start. Enter your scheduled start date. This cannot be a day in the future. So for example, if today's Tuesday and you're starting your school day on Monday, use yesterday's date. The time zone correction is only if you're using Excel online, and then write down how many days a week you do school. Enter your student's name at the bottom, and then use the tab to go to the review chart. After your child has finished doing the first 5 a day, you're going to correct it, and every concept that is correct, you will put on the review chart. So she reviewed concept number 5. If she gets that right, you'll enter a 5 on the review chart, hit enter. It fills everything out for you. Then all you do is go to the schedule, which is column H, and say how often you want her to practice it. So maybe you want to have her practice that once every 2 weeks. Then you put a 2W and enter, and it will automatically be scheduled for every 2 weeks. If later on you decide you want to drop that, since it's a drop concept, column Q is the replace drop column. You just put a D or an R in that column, hit enter, and the schedule will go away. I'm going to leave it on for right now, so I'll just take that off and leave it. The next concept you checked was concept number 7, and you can again schedule that for maybe this one you want every 3 weeks. Concept 8 is 1-digit addition. Now this is replaced by number 9, so if she got concept 9 and 16 correct, then you can schedule concept 16 as the only one that's scheduled. Maybe you're going to practice that every 3 days, 3D. And 9 and 16 can just be put as are replaced, and no schedule will be on there. That way you still have a record that you've checked those concepts, but you haven't scheduled them. Now, if she misses any of the concepts on her 5 a day, you're going to ask her how she got the answer, because sometimes she might know how to do the problem, and she just made a careless mistake. So as long as she really doesn't know how to do the concept, then you won't schedule it, because that one will need to be retaught. The only things that go on the review chart are the concepts that have been learned and that she can do independently. Every day after she does the 5 a day paper, you'll just go through, and anything she got right will be added to the review chart and scheduled. Your initial 5 a days then function like a placement test while you're building her review chart. So you give her 5 more problems every day until you've checked all of the concepts you think she knows how to do.
So this sounds really exciting, but I did have a question. What if I have a child who just really struggles with math? She has special needs, and math just has always been an incredible burden and battle, and it's just such a struggle to teach her. How do I do it then?
Okay, some of the things to remember when you're dealing with special needs will be that your child has strengths. There are things she's really good at. So what you want to be doing is finding those strengths and making sure that she feels confident in those areas and teach to the strengths. One of the problems with a lot of programs is they focus on teaching to the weaknesses. You want to start by teaching where she's strong. If she enjoys art, then use art as the foundation. And this isn't the place where we're going to go into a lot of details, but if you have questions about this, join the Math on the Level forum or the Facebook group, ask questions. You can send me an email, and we'll talk about ways to specifically use your child's strength to teach, to be the foundation for their math. Typically, a lot of kids with special needs do better with real life connections. So don't ignore the math adventures. That can be the foundation of your math. Also, make sure that you're teaching in small steps. Don't try to take things too much at a time. Make sure that she's succeeding where she is. And use the math 5-a-days to find where she is, go as slowly as you need to, and when you find an area that she's doing well in and enjoying, you can speed it up. Tweak it to be where she needs to be.
Okay. That sounds really good.
Yeah.
And then what about my child who, on the other side of things, is just really, really good at math, and he's moving almost too fast for me to keep up with him?
Okay, in that case, when you're doing your initial placement, if you know that your child knows how to do some of these things, you don't have to spend the time placing them. If your child is strong in math and you are very confident in what he or she knows, then just go ahead and enter things on the review chart and schedule them based on your knowledge of your child. If you mess up and they actually have forgotten something, you're going to catch it when they do their 5-a-day review. They'll miss it, and you'll know that has to be retaught. So it's not a big deal. But you can certainly make it a little faster by entering those concepts right away. As you're teaching a child like that, let them go as fast as they want. As you introduce a concept, if they understand it, put it on the review chart, move on. And you can move through quickly. Just be aware that all kids there's a tendency that at some point they will need to allow the information to assimilate in their brain. So there may be times in your teaching where it's going really fast, and then other times where you need to slow way down and just do some math adventures for a while. Focus on the math adventures. Typically you're going to do math adventures 2 to 3 days a week, pencil paper teaching 2 to 3 days a week. But you can tweak that to your children's needs. And if they're at a point where they're just not seeming to move forward quickly, it's fine to stop and give them a couple weeks where you're just doing fun things together, and then pick up the pace again.
So what exactly are the 5-a-days? How does that work? Does it really give my children enough math practice?
Okay, remember that the 5-a-days are review only. The 5-a-days are not for instruction. When you're teaching a concept, you can use as many problems as you need. And if you need extra problems and you're subscribed to the online 5-a-day, you can print out a worksheet with any concept that will give you as many problems as you need.
Okay.
So depending on your child's learning style, if you have a child who's very active, you might be doing a lot of manipulatives, you might be doing things that involve their whole body. If you have a child who just wants you to show them how to do it, you just show them how to do it. So depending on how your child learns, there's different ideas in the combined teaching guides. Each unit has different ideas to help you teach. And again, if you need more than what's there, check on the Facebook group, the forum, or send an email. But teach as thoroughly as your child needs in order to learn the concept.
Okay.
The 5-a-days are for review, because what most books do is they explain the concept and then they have your child do lots and lots and lots of problems. The thing is, once your child gets it, once they understand how to do it, having them do lots and lots of problems to retain it isn't really effective, because the way information gets into long-term memory is to do it over time. So once you see that your child can do the concept without you helping, they can do it independently, then the next day you put it on the review chart and they do one problem of that concept. If they get one right, then you know they remember how to do it. And that's really all you need to know. Did they remember? Did they forget? As long as they've remembered how to do it, one problem shows you that. So initially, you're going to put the concept on the review chart on daily review.
Okay.
After 3 to 5 days of them doing it correctly, you change the D to 2D. So then it goes on to every 2-day review. And for another 3 to 5 days, they're on every 2 days. Then you can change it to every 3 days, and every 4 days, every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. And again, you change it just by changing that number in the spreadsheet. It's very simple. And that way, they start out practicing every day, then every other day, and then you're going to get it to every month. They still practice that every month. If at any point they forget it, you're going to catch that, reteach it, put it on more frequent review, but they always just do one problem, because that one problem will tell you if they remember or if they've forgotten. And if they forgot, you don't want them doing 10 problems wrong. So our 5-a-day review is just a very systematic way of making sure that everything your child has learned stays in their long-term memory.
That sounds really perfect, especially for my daughter. My son loves math, and sometimes he just wants to do a whole bunch of problems for some reason. So is it okay if I just let him do as many as he wants?
Sure. And if you want to print extra problems, that's fine. You can print out a worksheet, or you can just put more problems on their review by simply scheduling it more frequently. So even though maybe he would only need it every month, you could put it on there once a week and generate more problems.
I love that flexibility.
Yes.
So how do I know what to teach?
Okay, during the placement process, actually the curriculum resources on page 16 gives you a lot of ideas of what to do during placement. Some ideas would be to play games together, to choose an activity such as graphing or metric cooking, choosing a lesson from the teaching guides that are easily taught to different levels at once. So there's some ideas if you look at page 16.
Okay.
They'll give you some ideas of things you can do while you're doing the placement. Once you get started and you're ready to get going on your daily math lessons, again, if you look on page 21, it gives you some ideas of what to do. One option is to pick the earliest unlearned lesson from the suggested teaching. So after you've gone through and marked off everything that your child can do, put those on the review chart, you can just look through the list and see, okay, here's the first thing that hasn't been learned yet, so let's teach that. Another option would be to look at the four sections, operations, geometry and measurements, fractions, money and decimals, and say, I think we want to start with fractions. And so you take the first one in the fractions section that needs to be taught. If you do something like that, you can also take a look at the suggested sequence, because that will list if there's a prerequisite concept. So if you decide you're going to teach something, you can take a quick look at the suggested sequence, and it will say you need to have, for example, you need to do this after concept 68. So it will give you a list. If you need to do something before that, it will tell you.
Okay, that's really handy.
Yes, it's very handy. So another thing you can do is just to look through the concepts and pick out one that looks like fun, because sometimes you just choose what you want to teach. So as far as what to teach when, it's okay to go ahead and start at the beginning, or to pick something else that just looks like fun.
That sounds really exciting. I'm ready to get started.
Okay.